you are very inspiring, and I know exactly what wavelength you're on, and sometimes I have no fucking clue. So it's great. You balance your range. You keep me guessing. I love it.
What's the time?
Thanks for having me on.
What's the time you've had no clue? Is that from?
I would say like 65% of our conversation. No, I'm just messing with you.
What's up, everybody? Today we've got the number one on the all-time women's money list. She's made pretty much, I guess, the most money out of any woman. She also graduated from Yale. She went to MIT. Smart as f***. She quit poker to work for a trading firm in finance for Wall Street, basically. So welcome, Vanessa Selbst. It's been a really long time since we've connected, but it seems like you're doing big things and got an interesting path that you've taken.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, no, it's good to see you. It's been a while. I'm excited to kind of dip my toes back in the poker world, so being on this podcast is exciting. It's a blast from the past, but yeah, I'm in a pretty different world right now, but like kind of similar at the same time, so, you know, I don't know. It's pretty fun.
So does that mean you're coming back to poker, or at least, you know, going back a little bit into it? Because I understand you said that you quit in 2018. I know now you've signed up with the WSOP Store team. Excuse me.
Yep, Play WSOP. Yep, we're a play money site, and I'm just kind of representing poker to the masses. I think I really appreciated the chance to be a spokesperson for Play WSOP, because I think, like, you know, you ask, am I going back to poker? It's like, I didn't quit poker. I mean, you never quit. Like, it was always a really big hobby for me. Obviously, I did it for my primary source of income for a long time, but I always did it for fun. And I think you never really quit poker in the sense that it's always fun. It's always a game. So, like, I haven't had very much time the last few years to play, or, you know, I started a new job 2 years ago, and with kids and all that. So it'll be my first time getting back in the live tournament streets, but it's definitely like I'm not going back to poker. I'm just playing for a couple weeks just for fun. But with Play WSOP, it was cool because it's like, you know, it's play money. It's like primarily for people to get involved with poker that are not pros. They're not high stakes. You know, they're not playing high stakes. They just really enjoy the game. And that's where I'm coming from too. Like, that's why I'm going out there. I'm just going to play whatever I can in the limited amount of time that I have, and I just really enjoy the game.
So yeah, no one ever really quits poker. It feels like poker's like the one industry where people always like say they're gonna quit, and then like the poker stall like reels them back in a little bit, and there's always like.
There's like people that like say they're gonna retire and then go back to playing, like the Fedors of the world, where I'm like, did you literally play more than you used to before you said you were retiring? But I just mean like, no, I'm definitely like not doing that. It actually used to really annoy me for some reason. Like the first couple of years after I quit, I was or retired, or whatever you want to call it, I was working at a hedge fund, and I was working a lot of hours. And I was like, I remember I took one trip. I took a few days off, and I went to some WPT. I don't even remember. It was near, you know, on the East Coast. And so many people were like giving me snide comments about like, oh, you know, I knew you weren't going to quit. And I was like, here I was, like not sleeping because I was working so hard at my new job. And, you know, I took 1 week, and everyone wanted to have a dig about it. But, no, I mean, I think we should encourage that, obviously. Like, it's, you know, for most people, it's weird because, like, you know, when you're a pro, you're in this, like, weird subset of the human race where you spend all your time playing a game. But obviously, like, 99.9% of people that play poker do it as a hobby. And so, yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm just a rec player. So I think that's going to be the hardest thing for me, actually. Like, what I realized during the WPTs, I played, like, I think I played 4 WPTs in the last 6 years. They were mostly like maybe 4 years ago, right before COVID. I was actually planning to play a few more, but then, you know, COVID and all that shit. So, but the hardest thing for me was like I actually got final 3 tables in 3 of them, and I never used to get final 3 tables. I always used to get like, I would just bust right away, or I would get final table, because for me that was the stage where I felt like I really knew exactly what was going on. I knew where people had leaks, and I was like really good at kind of reading people and understanding how they were going to play suboptimally near the bubble, and I just like really feel like I crushed that. And then those 3 tournaments, 2 of them, one of them I just ran bad, but 2 of them I like definitely made mistakes that I would never have made when I was playing a lot. And I was kind of hard on myself for a while, but you know, obviously, like if you're not practicing and you're playing high stakes tournaments, you're not going to play as well. But I think it's a tough pill to swallow because, you know, if you're a big winner in tournaments, like a lot of your ROI comes from like crushing, you know, at least for me. Some people are good at different stages. For me, I was like fine at the early levels, but I think like my great ROI came from playing the late stages really, really well. And kind of knowing that I wasn't at that level was really tough. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for me this summer is kind of like being sort of some mix of like taking it easy on myself and like not being too hard on myself if I make mistakes, but also like, look, if I get in a high equity spot, you know, like I was just thinking to myself today, if I go deep in the main, well, I would have to, I want to like study and, you know, like do some things to improve my ROI. But so it's like where, you know, kind of finding that balance of like, are you a recreational player? Are you a pro? Like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to navigate for me. So I think that's going to be kind of tough.
Maybe you could like leverage both. And I don't know, maybe you could even get into these good cash games. Actually, you probably could, is my guess, if you cared enough. And by the way, the strategy that you alluded to seems to be pretty popular these days, or a variation of it seems to be popular these days in tournaments, or at least it's suggested, in that a little bit later in tournaments, you seem to want to like increase the variance so that you either bust or you have like a big chip advantage when the bubble approaches, and so that gains you more and more EV as things progress. It has something to do with future gameplay, because obviously if you're, you know, you have a shitty stack size around the bubble or, you know, at the final table, it really sucks, and there's not a whole lot.
I didn't realize that was like a thing. I think I like naturally did that just because my style was so crazy that I always like had a big stack, or was just like, you know, lasted 2 hours, which was great for my hourly. But yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. I think like, yeah, you know, I used to coach a lot of students, and I think one of the things that always stuck with me, like I had students that would, you know, bust with like 12 or 13 big blinds and lose a flip. And it's like, you know, if your style is like fold, 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 get all in with 80% equity once you have 10 big blinds, it's like probably you're going to lose one of those at some point, you know? And so I would say to the students, like, okay, like, yeah, obviously you got unlucky, sort of, but like, why do you have 12 big blinds to begin with? Like, you know, it's like, you know, this stage is coming up. What can you do to prepare to put yourself in a better situation? So I think that makes a ton of sense, that like people realize that like on the bubble, if you're a big stack, you get to just go crazy. And if you're a short stack, you have to play super tight. So like kind of the like pre-bubble play, right? Like making sure you're putting yourself in a position to really, you know, I think that extends all the way to the beginning of the tournament. Honestly, I mean, it always depends on your table and your, you know, who you're playing against. You always have to adapt in poker. That's why it's such a beautiful game. If people are playing too tight, you play too loose, and vice versa. But I do think that generally people are far too tight in tournaments in most situations. Like they're too worried about stack preservation. So I don't know.
There's some mathematics around this, and I was actually a bit too aggressive myself to be corrected as it happened, because ICM did actually affect the bet sizes and things like that. I haven't studied it too much in detail, but there is something to be said for different bet sizes, at least if we're like taking ICM into consideration.
Oh yeah, once you're deep, I agree. I more meant like earlier stages. Kind of like you're saying, it's kind of like the logical next step of like pre-bubble and then pre-bubble. You can extend that all the way back to the beginning of the tournament, because I agree, you kind of have to be tighter later. So if you're shorter stacked, and so like kind of, you know. Yeah.
Have you read Mathematics of Poker?
I don't know. That sounds like something I may have read like 20 years ago, but
it's a book. It's pretty good. Well, so there's truth to both sides. I would say, from what I understand, you do definitely want to get it in with like, you know, an edge, even like 55%. But basically in that book, they go over an example of like, if you have like queens versus ace king, should you just get it all in pre-flop in the main event where like you could have future
obviously, absolutely not. Yeah, obviously,
no.
Absolutely not.
Actually, obviously, yes. As it turns out.
No, that's just wrong. I'm sorry. I don't even know what this book is, but that can't be right.
Well, they've got math behind it.
Yeah, sure. You could have math, but like, how do you quantify it? You can come up with a mathematical formula for anything, but if you don't describe, if the formula only exists under conditions that you're describing that don't actually correspond with the conditions. Like, you could say, well, you need this much edge in the tournament to justify passing up this much edge in like a single situation or something. And if you just tweak various parameters, I mean, it's the same thing with trading all the time. Like, you can describe a model with many parameters and you can tweak a few parameters and you come up with like vastly different results. So I don't know. I don't want to say no. Obviously, I'm like sort of being tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of how I am. But like, I don't believe it. Like, I think like, I mean, obviously, in some situations, sure, depending on like what your pot odds are and whatever. But if you're talking about like early in the main, I really think that like there are so many ways to chip up for very little variance that I can't imagine that ever being good.
I'm actually on the other side of this one, if I'm really honest. And I am really honest. So in this case, basically, the math resulted where you needed something like 300 or 400% ROI just to like be able to overtake something like a 57-43% edge.
Yeah. So sorry, Queens versus Ace King is not 57-43. Let's be clear.
Yeah, it is.
And
I think it is
57-40.
We're gonna have to look this one up.
I did not think it was 57. I thought it was more like 54-46 or something. But anyway, It's been a long time. I believe you, but I really don't think it's 57-43. But anyway, if you're not sure, then I believe me. If you're sure, then I'll defer to you. You can also
I'm very
just look
confident.
it up.
I'm
You're
like
very
90%
confident.
sure.
90%. Okay, you're gonna lay me 9-1. Wait, don't look it up yet. Hold on, Dan. If you're 90% confident, you gotta lay me 9-1 then. Like, put your money where your mouth is.
Maybe I'm not as confident as I thought. Wait, I'm gonna look it up.
All right. Okay. Cool.
If I lay you 9-1,
while you're looking that
even.
up, my point is like I really think that probably. I mean, at least for myself, I believe that I have a 300% ROI in the main for sure.
You're right. Actually, it's 56% favorite over Ace King.
I thought it was 54-46. Oh, Ace King off, but over the combos of Ace. How much is it against Ace King suited?
It's like 53.
Okay, cool. So then the weighted average of that is like 55. So because there's like 3-1 combos, so it's like 55.25. So it was closer to 54-46. Let's just call that a win for me. Especially when you're 9-1 short. Come on, man. Come on.
Well, Vanessa, let's. I want to talk a bit more about trading and philanthropy because I think these subjects. I think trading is really obviously related to poker, and I think philanthropy is not as obviously related, but I think it really is actually at the end of the day.
Interesting.
Because if you want to be effective at philanthropy, it's kind of like the same principle. Like, how do you balance your emotions with doing good, especially if we're going to like maximize good, but why wouldn't you? Right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about like what made you decide or what's your experiences like in a trading firm as, I don't know, do you find it like more rewarding than poker? What's similar about it? Like these kinds of things. Do you love it?
I mean, definitely rewarding is not the thing that like I entered either of those things for. Like I decided, I sort of have like these like two personas or something where like I care about social justice and doing good in the world, but I also care about like loving what I do every day. And I found over time like I went to law school because I thought I could like marry those things with doing social justice law, but it turns out I hated being a lawyer. So I realized that what I like to do is think about games and play games, and then that would have to be distinct from this like doing good in the world. Not that like our firm is bad. I mean, I work Jane Street. It's like a fabulous place where like very ethical people and good people, but it's not like I'm not like helping poor people. You know what I mean? So, but that being said, but I love what I do. I love the place I work. I trade options. We're market makers, so basically provide liquidity, meaning we're like buying and selling things all day. It's like incredibly fun. It's so much like poker, but there's just like way more things you can do, way more variables, way more like ways to kind of make profit, make money. I do a variety of like trading live, so people are trading, like I'm trading orders with people, trying to figure out who am I trading with, like what's their motivation, what's their execution like. That much is just like poker, where it's like literally how much size are they going to do, how fast are they going to do it, when are why are they doing this, are they smart, are they not that smart, like do they have an edge, what is that, how do I update what I thought was like especially options. I'm trading volatility. I had a fair volatility in mind. How does like the new information? It's a game of incomplete information. I'm taking in new information. How does that update my model of what the volatility surface should look like or whatever? So that's just like the live trading is just like poker in so many ways, and it's really fun. And then I do a mix of other things like do research, like a lot of data science stuff for like more algorithmic trades, like coding tools to help us trade, stuff like that. So I don't know, it's incredibly fun. And I love going to work every day. I love the firm I work for. So that's all been really fun. And then from a philanthropy side, like I said, it's pretty different. Like I've done various things. I have a foundation that I set up a long time ago. It's almost 10 years at this point, where I like fund a lawyer to do. It's historically been police misconduct litigation at various organizations around New York City. So I have either 1 or 2 lawyers a year, and that's been funded with poker money, which has been like a really nice way to kind of marry those two things, like you said. And then various other things, like I organized a charity poker tournament. Honestly, I kind of hated that. It was a lot of fun. It was very successful, but it was just like the things that I'm like. I don't know. It was like party planning and asking people for money and stuff. And it was kind of awkward, but yeah.
I think the whole organizing part wouldn't be something that you would do. I would think that you would hire someone to do that because that's like a totally different skill set, as you just alluded to.
Like it. Yeah, right, exactly. So like I was kind of like more on the ground about it. Like eventually I could have farmed it out, but I think the thing I really hated was like the fundraising aspect of it, which I think like you kind of have to do from a personal level. And I just like don't like asking people for money. I mean, like I've talked to a lot of people in philanthropy about this. Like if you believe in your cause, which I obviously did, it was for the Urban Justice Center, which is a fantastic organization that provides legal services for people, kind of groups in need in New York City. So if you believe in your cause, you're not really asking for money for yourself. But I still found the whole thing a little bit kind of awkward or whatever. But yeah, I would do it again if the time was right or something. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm at what I've been up to, I guess. But they're pretty different like spheres, I would say. But I think like being able to put my money into that other stuff makes kind of makes the whole thing work. So.
Wait, so what's your foundation? What does it do?
The foundation is just like honestly a legal entity that, like, I mean, not to get too into the weeds, but basically like I made a bunch of money when I was really young from poker. Like I had a really big year. It was 2010, and 2010. Oh my God, it's been 13 years? Wait, did I say? I'm so confused now. Yeah, I guess it's been like almost 13 years since I set it up. That's crazy. Time flies. But like basically I made a bunch of money and I was like, all right, I know I want to do something, but I don't like for like the good of the world, but I don't know what yet. So I set up a private foundation so that I could basically avoid paying taxes on it. Like, because eventually I knew I was going to eventually give the money to charity. Mm-hmm. And so the way a private foundation works is like, you just have to give away 5% every year. So it's kind of perfect because then I set up this structure that I could like use that money over time in like a sensible way, basically. So it's really just a legal fiction, but
I mean,
it's the yeah.
Okay, well, you answered like the legal part, and yeah, that makes sense. It's like a way to make people do it realistically that saves them. Well, it doesn't save them money exactly, but it doesn't hurt them, and they do some good. So that's cool. But like, what does it support precisely? What's your cause?
Oh yeah, so it's my foundation. I can do whatever I want with it as long as I give it to charities. But what I've done is I actually work with Equal Justice Works, which is an organization that supports like legal graduates that want to go into nonprofit public interest law. And so for the last, I want to say 10 years, maybe 9 years, each year I've had either 1 or 2 lawyers that their salary and expenses are paid through the foundation, and they're working on either with like the ACLU or Legal Aid or some various organizations that kind of work for various civil rights causes, whether it's police misconduct or racial justice, stuff like that. So that's what I've been supporting.
Oh, so it's like combining law and like philanthropy.
Yeah,
sounds like
exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes quite a lot of sense. Makes sense to like focus on like what yeah.
I didn't get into the whole effective altruism. Like I get it, like, and I'm like, yeah, this probably isn't like, I could probably buy way more malaria shots or something with my, the $70K or whatever it costs per year. But for me, that was like a way that I could be really connected, especially when I had just graduated law school. I was like, I was also more hands-on with the fellows, with the attorneys. So because I had the experience as well, so I was working more directly. Now I'm much more hands-off now that I'm kind of more removed from that world. But it was nice to kind of feel like I had a little bit of, boots on the ground, stuff like that.
Well, I would like to assert that effective altruism, at least if they're looking at it purely from the standpoint of like money plus lives saved or something like that, plus pain alleviated in the short term, is not correct. Certainly, I would not believe that, I think it's an important cause that, alleviate malaria, but it's definitely not optimal for everyone to focus on something like that. And it's not optimal in my eyes, personally.
Yeah, it's like a range, there's like a, some
I'm-
percentage has to be allocated, right? So what do you do? What's your deal with philanthropy?
So, it's kind of long-winded, and it depends on what we're calling philanthropy. But basically, I asked myself, at some point it hit me that, you can do good, like you can give people food, you can, cure malaria, for example. You can, well, if you cured malaria, that'd be like a massive thing. But you can like, help alleviate like a temporary pain, but then more pain's going to keep happening. And so I kept asking myself, I asked myself various questions like, well, wait, what is good in the first place? Because sometimes you can do good and it does bad. Also, like if you feed people and they become dependent on you, now you've done something bad. Because you need actually to get them to sustain themselves. So I thought, okay, well, you don't feed people, you feed people tactically, yeah, but you don't feed people all the time. And then at some point I realized, okay, well, philanthropy itself, or at least maybe not necessarily philanthropy, but the idea of like giving away stuff by itself looks like it's not 100% the way to do things. And then it occurred to me, well, how do I fix all these problems? And then I talked a little bit with some people, and it looks like basically there's been quite some debate about this subject, but for a long time people debated over the big areas of impact being energy, health, and education. I thought it was education, but you need health in order to be educated, and you need energy to be able to read or whatever in the light. You need some kind of energy. And then along came this idea of something like sport, which is basically, people educate themselves, but not in the practical sense through sport. They educate themselves by through learning certain virtues like perseverance and how to work as a team and things like that. And so, it hit me like, okay, this actually does connect to poker, because poker, you wouldn't necessarily call it a sport, but it's a game where you actually learn some really important concepts like critical thinking, perseverance you really need for poker or trading. You need to look at things fairly and objectively, which is super important in the world today. You have to take courage and take risks and things, right? And it hit me, okay, like there's really something here. And so it occurred to me, and then also taking it into my past experiences, that basically through certain kinds of action, through sport, you could say, can make a big impact in this kind of way and also lead towards the education of people fixing their various problems. On top of that, there were other versions of education like how to be a good person, and things that were communicated through various cartoons and media, whatever that was watched. And so I realized that there were like two ends of this that made sense, but it all fell under the umbrella of education, in the sense of educating people culturally in terms of what's good, what are like good practices to embody, and like actually doing them through practice, which would be something like sport. There's so getting to the root of this, there's media that I decided to work on, and realized that I was affected by media itself, and so that's why I'm going into the entertainment industry, and also trying to promote how do you say, like the arts and things like that, especially for developing countries. And this will help give kids like jobs and stuff. Helping kids is like one of the biggest ways to make an impact. There's many different variations of this, but what I realized was that helping kids in the beginning stages of their lives was one of the most scalable ways to do it. There are other variations. I originally was focusing primarily on promoting a friend's charity, which basically educated kids from 0 to 6 years old and taught them like a right way of living as well. But it occurred to me actually that many things that are promoted in many you could say religious cultures, etc., are actually really good. Like yoga is really good, just fundamentally. And I had this like epiphany, like holy shit, like all the religions are basically saying the same thing, in this similar direction. It's basically a version of media, and then
I feel like where this is headed is like you're starting some sort of super cult, you know, that's like a amalgamy of all the religions, and you're gonna have these like videos that you send out to like various. I'm just kidding. I don't know where this is going. I'm very I'm waiting for the, you know. So what are you like literally doing with this?
That's a good question. So on the philanthropy side of things, I'm helping kids to be educated in the right kind of way of things. I want to do that and like lead them towards being like, you know, excellent members of society. That's what I believe in, basically. Whether it's poker or actually trading was one that came up recently with a friend of mine who's, you know, brilliant. And, you know, it can be anything. The other areas I don't really know anything about, so I have to start with poker. But I've been reorienting my entire career in this direction, deciding basically, okay, maybe I can help kids become excellent poker players because I can, and like teach them in like developing countries, and this will create at least somewhat of a middle class a little bit. And now I can help some people. You don't? Do you agree?
No. Oh, so you're helping people in developing countries become poker players.
Well, this is an idea lately where it seems like this has quite a bit of promise, just because like,
yeah, if you think poker definitely. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just think that for many of these kids in these countries, it's like a pretty viable career if you find like the right ones, and those are ones that I can most easily help and help in like a big way. And it's like somewhat scalable if you do it in the right way as well, and it develops a community aspect, which is what's required in general for the bigger picture. Like I kind of have to reverse engineer this massive vision that I have, and like this is the idea.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think poker teaches incredible skills, and I think teaching what you know and what you're passionate about is always going to be the most effective. So I say go for it, you know?
Okay.
Go teach some six-year-old African kids how to play poker.
Well, maybe more like teenagers.
I'm in. I'll go play. What?
More like teenagers.
Oh, I thought we were on 0 to 6. All right. So
0 to 6 is for different skills, Vanessa.
Oh,
you can't teach your 3-year-old how to play poker.
I'm just messing with you, man. I'm just kidding.
Well, 0 to 6 is the age where infants' brains are most influenced, right? So, it's just the age where like you want them to start off on the right path early, ideally. But the problem with this, which I'll get to in a second, I'll get to the problem in a second. But basically, if you teach them basic life skills from 0 to 6 years old, this is going to help a lot later on. This is my friend's project, which I've personally donated to. I've flown to countries, I've given speeches on. I believe in this, but there's like more to the story. Children's education is very complicated, so you have to factor in like how easily influenced things are. You know, when you're looking at like. It's kind of like there may be a lot of value in running like really strange bluffs in poker, but it's super hard to apply. So maybe you'd focus that effort somewhere else. But in this case, the analogy would be you focus it on pre-flop, and pre-flop's just like more complicated than you thought. And it requires a little bit more effort. But in the scope of children's education, affecting these kids is a lot easier than affecting like adults. And even teenagers to a decent degree, I would say. So at least like donation wise, I would pick that area. But I mean, obviously, you know, people pitched all kinds of things to me. I believe in kind of supporting things in the ways that they're meant to be supported. So like, you know, and the environment's super important too. If there's no environment, there's no anything.
No shortage of causes that need support, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is donation-wise would be that, and then you know, business-wise, you know, ethical business-wise, the helping kids with poker might be a realistic thing. I'm surprised you supported that so wholeheartedly. I don't know if you think it's a great idea or not, because I read that you didn't believe that promoting poker to amateurs was a good idea as like a viable way to make money.
Sorry, I think like teaching poker as a way, like I was like, first of all, I was kidding, because I was like, oh, you're gonna go teach 6-year-olds how to play poker. It was kind of a joke, but I think like teaching poker in general teaches like really good skills, like you said, critical thinking, logical, deductive reasoning, psychology. I mean, I think poker is one of the most beautiful game because there are so many skills that can make someone great, and there's so many transferable skills that you learn from poker. I don't support like kind of giving the illusion that poker is like a good like way to make a living post like 2015, really, I would say, especially not in like America at the very least, which is what I know. I think that almost everybody would be better suited to just like go on a more traditional path if they were like choosing between that and poker. So I don't know where you like heard that I didn't support, but so I'm not sure where that quote or what the context was of it, but that sort of been my stance, where I just thought like it's just like not a great career path for most people at this point. But it's like a great game for amateurs, like to have fun with. Absolutely. I think it's fantastic.
So a couple things. It was when you quit, you said you were quitting poker. And secondly, I think that what you say about a traditional route would have been true up until about recent years, where it's becoming less and less true. And basically, like in universities, basically it's now like getting a college degree is like not even as valuable as like.
Sorry, I think you're like misunderstanding me about maybe like the word traditional is like pretty loaded. Like I absolutely don't think you necessarily need a college degree. I just think like sort of something like more quote unquote traditional in the sense that it kind of like adds value to the world rather than like playing a zero-sum game. It's not even that there's anything wrong with it. I just think literally the industry of poker got to a place where it's incredibly hard to make a living. It's like not very lucrative for most people, and it's incredibly hard, and it's painted as something that's far more glamorous than it actually is. And most of the people that I know that can make a lot of money, if that's their goal or something, could actually make a lot more money doing something else. So like trading is a great example. Like everybody I know that's making like 7 figures from poker could probably like triple their salary at least if they were trading or something, whatever it is. So if the goal is money, there are better ways to do it. If the goal are other things, like freedom and all of these other things, like fair enough, I guess. But I just, it didn't feel like those things were very available in poker either. Like it didn't feel like you could marry like having stability and having the freedom. That the illusion was there, but it didn't feel like that was real in practice, I guess, for myself.
Okay. Well, the goal for what I was thinking was to get people to like be able to make sustainable levels of income, not necessarily 7 figures. The goal for me is to create more of a middle class. Do you think that's viable? Because trading actually is one of the avenues that was suggested precisely in exactly the same way. So it got me kind of excited. I thought, okay, well, like maybe through my friend, I can like help, promote this trading thing, or like help facilitate its creation in some other country or whatever. Because the idea isn't just poker, by the way. I just want to start with poker. And I also want to show one idea is that poker is actually a really apt metaphor for life. Even the ethics of life, by the way, from like the highest point of view. It's a perfect metaphor, but only people in poker can really understand it. Do you see how that's true? Does that make sense to you? Are you interested to hear?
I think you're gonna have to elaborate. That's pretty like kind of like what.
Okay,
what's the
I have the
metaphor
perfect analogy in a second. But
sure.
The idea is, firstly, I want to run this idea. I just want to help people go from like f***ing like dust to like making 30,000 a year or something like that, on like a larger scale.
Yeah, dude, I'm saying like if that's what and that's how you can help people, like absolutely, like that is great. And there's a lot of people that a traditional job setting is not great. So like everything that you can never say a blanket statement. When I say I don't think poker is like a great like career path or something, and like should not be like glamorized or something like that, that's not to say there are not people who it's perfect for. Like absolutely, and there are a ton of people out there who, it's a great career path. I think that being said, for like your average person, I think like kind of depending on what your goals are. If your goals are money, I think you can do better somewhere else. If your goals are like structure and stability and kind of like having, if your goals are like socialization, if your goals are, kind of like being kind of like, I don't know, learning the ways of society, like in a more traditional sense or something. Like all of those things I think are like better served like in other kinds of paths. That's all I was saying. Like I think there's a lot of great things about poker and the independence and the things you learn from the game, but I think there's also just like a ton of like downsides of the lifestyle. That's all.
Okay. That might be true. Yeah, that might be true. I like kind of I don't know. I think poker gives a lot of freedom. I think it lets you do kind of whatever you want if you become successful.
I know. I think that's really hard for a lot of people. Like it was hard for me. Like I don't want to speak for like a lot of people. That was hard for me. Like it was hard for me as someone who I have like pretty bad ADD and like I'm not very good at organizing. We talked about I don't like organizing things. I kind of like to have structure in place for me. And so when I was able to play poker, I kind of like was a little bit lost a lot of the time. Like what am I doing? Like I don't have like higher goals in some sense, besides like being better at this game or something. Like it was hard for me. So but like yeah, absolutely the freedom is incredible in a lot of ways, but you know there's also drawbacks to it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to draw higher goals from it. The main higher goal that I wanted to allude to is that it actually does suggest, if you look at it from the right kind of angle, it does sort of suggest it could be used as a model for how like ethics work in certain ways. Like for example, you could relate like putting in big raises in early to something like being like having an aggressive sort of like if you're too aggressive, for example, then it'd be similar to being too aggressive and like dealing with people, so that yeah, you would win a lot of the battles in the short term, but it'd create like a lot of resentment in the long term.
Sure, you're talking about like having a plan for the hand and playing like multi-street before is like good for like kind of creating a roadmap for like any goal or something like that. Like sure, there's like analogies you can draw, and I agree with you. I think like the skills that are very transferable. I mean, I've been saying that all along, and like I love that. You know, that's a great point of like the ability to kind of see like multi-street contingencies that kind of like evolve in like a potential game tree is like an amazing skill for kind of any endeavor. Like completely agree with you. And like yeah, like I said, but that's what I've been saying to you. Like I think it's fantastic to teach people poker if the goal is like teaching them like skills that like the skills you learn in poker, bar none, are applicable a lot of places and are very, very great. So like yeah, completely agree with all of that. It was more just like I don't know that like anyway, I don't even think we disagree on things. I think like okay. I just said something like I don't think it's a great career path for most people these days, but like I'm
like kind of trying to like reverse engineer how to make this like big impact. The part of the dream, the real dream, and it's like completely insane, would be to create functional members of society that can go from like they're born and then they're raised in the proper way, and then they like lift up their own fucking nation because they're so functional, right? Because like at the root of it, all problems come from within, is what I think, right? Because the more fucked up someone is on the inside, the more fucked up the outside will be. You see what I'm saying? And like I was just thinking, poker might be a good starting point for that, but sure. It doesn't seem
I
that.
think anything
scalable.
That can ground people and give someone a passion and make someone excited about succeeding and thriving is great. So absolutely, and I said teach what you know. So yeah, I think it's a great goal.
Yeah. Well, let's talk more about your stuff before we have to go. It sounds like you've got to go in a second. Would you like to talk more about WSOP or your philanthropy or your trading firm or whatever?
I think we've talked about most stuff. I mean, I said I'm excited to get out of the World Series. Like it's a great tournament. I'm happy that that's the place I get to go back and play poker. The last time I played, I was like, it was when I busted with my full house to quads, which is now an infinite hand. So excited to get back out there and try again. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm just I'm happy to go out there. It's got me amped up, Dan. Like it's always fun, talking to you. Sometimes you are very inspiring, and I know exactly what wavelength you're on, and sometimes I have no fucking clue. So it's great. You balance your range. You keep me guessing. I love it.
What's the
so
time?
Thanks for having me on.
What's the time you've had no clue? Is that from?
I would say like 65% of our conversation. No, I'm just messing. You know, I don't know. I gotta protect that one. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I hope to see you out in Vegas.
Me too.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been great having you on, Vanessa. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much.